Hi, my name is Gil Robertson, President of the African American Film Critics Association. Today on AAFCA Roundtables, we welcome the talented cast of the upcoming Amazon Prime series, Small Axe.
A demonstration took place against the police, which degenerated into totally inexcusable violence. There may be some who believe that they have been the victim of injustice. There are others who, like parasites, feed on these beliefs and seek to turn them to their own advantage, deliberately creating hate and violence. These defendants are all guilty of the serious criminal offense.
This attack on a black establishment is not an isolated event, but a sustained campaign against black people. And today we are saying enough is enough.
If you are the big tree, we are the small axe, sharpened to cut you down.
Steve McQueen's one of my favorite directors. He's a recipient of an AAFCA award for 12 Years a Slave, as well as an Oscar. And so we're really looking forward to seeing what he's done with this a piece of work, which will be coming out very soon on Amazon Prime. We're going to introduce our members who are joining us today for this conversation, starting with KB in Houston, Brandon in Germany, Frankfurt, just outside of Frankfurt, Germany. Reggie Ponder in Chicago. Katia Woods in Philadelphia. Carolyn Hinds in Toronto. Ray Cornelius in Atlanta. Brandon Collins in New York. And Ronda Racha Penrice in Atlanta. I'm going to let you guys do what you do so well, and I will see you on the other side.
Hi, it's KB here. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you doing? You all right?
Doing well, thank you. So my question is for you, Amarah. So talk about the portrayal of kind of carefree yet headstrong Martha, and how seeing Black love on screen and seeing kind of that level of Black freedom that we saw in Lovers Rock can be considered a revolutionary act in and of itself.
Well, I'll specifically talk about what you said at the end first. I think what's key for me with this is during training, I wouldn't really think that I'd be a lead, let alone in a love story. So I feel so blessed to do this because I want young Black women to see this, young Black girls, young teenagers to see this and be like, wow, I can be a beautiful Black female in a love story and play a lead. So I think that really means a lot to me. And what was the first part of your question?
Oh, yes. I was just saying, talk a little bit more about your portrayal of the carefree and headstrong Martha, because I feel like she is, fierce and she's courageous, but she also lets her hair down in a way that we don't often get to see on screen. So just talk a little bit about that, please.
Yeah, adding on to what you said as well, I also think she's quite shy. She can be quite shy. This world is kind of new to her. I mean, she comes from a religious background and she's heard about these blues nights and she wants to explore it. I think she's quite an explorer. I think speaking with my mum a lot, when my mum came here from Jamaica when she was 9, and speaking with her about her nights out, and the whole thing of, even though you're excited to get to this destination, you also have to have your guard up on the way and kind of be looking over your shoulder and things like that. So all of that kind of helped me to understand that I'm telling my mother's truth, I'm telling my auntie's truth, and it really helped me with the character. I also think the whole feisty side of her, the cheekiness, is very similar to me. So I think that's where, like, when I was doing the differences and the similarities, like, those were definitely similarities with me. That,
My question is for Malachi. The question I had for you was, what kind of preparation do you do to play a real individual? And after you've played somebody who's faced this adversity, is that hard to shake off when you come back to the real world?
I've played a few role individuals. For me, this was different. I spent so much time trying to get the accent down, not just because it's different to my own, but because I feel like Darkus in particular, his accent was so much a part of who he was, and expressed who he was. Like it mattered, getting that right for me. not just a Trinidadian accent, but Darkest accent. You know, he had his own voice, very unique. Outside of that, you know, it was like reading up about him in books, newspaper articles, finding all of the online video stuff that I could find, but most of that was when he was older. And so in terms of understanding him as a younger man, a lot of that had to do with imagination, to be honest. Taking the person that I knew him to be, and I guess just making him human, you know, in my mind, in terms of like what I understood about him, what I understood about and what I related to about the struggles that he went through. Not that my life has looked anything like his, in terms of activism and everything like that, but just the everyday life, you know, especially for scenes where he's not in the court and where he's not on the TV, but he's just at home, you know. Just for me, that was possibly more important to get that right than it was the courtroom scenes.
Hi guys, my question is for you, Amarah. And as KB said, one of the things that I loved about the film is the joy. And the other portion is the sense of community. Talk a little bit, because when we think of the UK, we know there obviously are Black people, but we don't often see the sense of community and the unity display. Talk about how it was to see that and how to film that.
Oh gosh, I think it was so beautiful, because it was almost as if this house party is an escape, because the whole thing of it is that these blues parties, they were a celebration of culture when we weren't allowed to go to the white nightclubs. But what's beautiful about it is that we celebrated in despite of that, despite that we celebrated. So I think for me, it was being in that room and the dancing and stuff. And it's like the outside world just kind of didn't matter. And then when you see the supporting artists, to me, there's no like leads or anything like that. Everyone was like together. You had the choreographer that would get the supporting artists in another room before we started. And she said, there's no way I can just have them in costume and start. They need to understand this energy. They need to understand what it's about. And she got them in another room and really pumped them up and got the music playing. And then I remember coming in for like one of the first scenes with everyone. And it was just amazing. It was incredible. Those sort of things, I think, where you've seen it on screen, that can't be faked. I fully believe everyone was so in it and so involved and just felt it in themselves and was so connected to it. It was really beautiful.
Hi, this question is for you, Malachi. I actually want to follow up on what Amarah just spoke about, is this whole issue about celebration of culture. I believe that that is absolutely what McQueen did in all three of these, and particularly in Mangrove as well. Can you talk about the celebration of culture there and the importance of that?
The importance of culture for me, especially, you know, I was born in London, I'm of Jamaican descent. I haven't seen my culture on screen very often. I can probably count maybe 3 films in total that I've seen. And so to see that, I didn't know, not that I needed it, but how much I would appreciate that. You know, hearing those accents, hearing people speak about the rice and peas and the callaloo, and hearing the music, like, I don't know how to express how amazing that made me feel personally. And this was just reading the script, you know, this was before even watching it back when I saw it at the premiere. So I can only imagine how it would make others feel of that same culture. You know, I've got used to having to relate to people that don't look like me and doing so, you know, but to be able to actually see not just a Jamaican person, not just a Trinidadian person, not just a Caribbean person, but the nuances of that, you know, not specific to reggae or to Rastafarianism or anything, like just the nuance of a human being that existed. I feel like could only have been done by someone of that culture, you know. So to have Steve not only be a director on this, but also help write these stories for me was really important. And it was a great joy to be a part of.
Thank you, because I feel that from both of you guys, that whole joy that you brought to it. So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Oh, pleasure. Could you repeat the question again, sir?
For you, like being a part of a project that like Small Axe is an anthology series, but because each film is saying something very specific about the Black West Indian experience in particular in London, not only back then, but it can apply to now. Like, what is it for you? What does it mean to be a part of something that could create a resurgence in seeing Black West Indian culture on TV? Since we haven't really, well, for me, I haven't really seen it since Desmond.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, that's because I just unmuted myself. Wow, there's like 800 things we could talk about here. 800 things, many, many, many things. One of them is that after a while, you can have all the experience that you want in this business we call show and whatever, what have you. But for me, selfishly, and maybe you've touched on this already. Selfishly, I did a play a few years ago. It was called Elmina's Kitchen, and I was able to work with some pretty heavy hitters in the world of theatre and TV in this country, which I'd never got to do before. That experience, working with 3 different generations of Black West Indians in this country, was like amazing for me selfishly, because there's something about being in a community of people who understand and then working towards something together with heart and soul, and everybody cares. There's something about that certainly, for me, I can't speak for anyone else, I've missed. So if we want to talk about acting and we want to talk about these shows, I've been in a bunch of things and well done me, but it's when I've been in these shows where I look at someone else and I can see them getting it and caring just as much as I do, sometimes even more, seemingly. As I've said to Malachi, and I've said to Steve, and I've said to Letitia, we all cared. We really cared. Because we get it. Because we get that this doesn't happen that often, but also in the summoning up of these, as I've said before, in the summoning up of these spirits, it's like saying a prayer. It's like singing a hymn for them. It's not laying these ghosts to rest so much as it's giving these people a voice that they deserve. It's much bigger than acting, and it's much bigger than, you know, some of the politicized things that I'm sure people will go on to talk about. It's something that my soul connected with. And again, that's just me selfishly, and I don't know if anyone else understands that. Certainly with the role that I was tasked with playing, this is a real role of a dude who really lived, who had a voice in his community, but it's such a powerful message, what they went through. And I think it cost all of those people so much, that to be able to tell their story and have generations years later be able to understand their power, where they come from, who they are. I was just talking to someone just now about the idea that says that when you see people being strong, you know, someone was like, how did they, you know, well, how they got through that was because of their strength. It's not just him. He's not unique. All of our parents, grandparents were in the struggle. We all know what we're talking about here. None of us needs to say anything in code or not. We can say 2 words, and I know everybody here would be going, I know it. So what am I saying? What I'm saying is to be able to show that on TV from a place of heartfelt, you know, soulful understanding, and not just bang on the door of people's cerebrals with it, you know, knock at their hearts with it, and then have them have their cerebral thinking as well. It's a very special thing to have been a part of, for sure. And God, that's just one angle to answer your question, Carolyn. that's like one angle of what it's been like. Then there's the idea of having to go up like Malachi and Letitia and play these roles and exhibit these feelings and summon up these feelings, especially in the Mangrove. I can't talk for the other shows, but certainly in the Mangrove, and know that you've got Steve McQueen, this hard taskmaster, making sure that it's no play. We're not here to play. If the scene, as Malachi know, if the scene is this guy needs to look like he doesn't want to go to prison, and there are 8 cops trying to throw him in prison, and he doesn't want to go in prison, it better look like that. Action. That's what it was every day. Every day. And that can be difficult. But hopefully you do that, and hopefully you can then watch it afterwards and think, yeah, all that hard work and summoning up of those old, really heartfelt, the abuse. It's abuse. I see it as abuse, what they all went through. So, to summon all of that up, it's difficult, but they deserve a voice, these people. And the joy of it, the pain of it. But for me, the idea of that hymn that says we shall overcome, the we shall overcomeness of it. I mean, there's so many, it's such a meal for me, this anthology, it's crazy. And it's British London. Well, our one is anyway, That's also something that's special to me as well. I could go on and on, as you can probably tell. I won't. Someone else jump in. Malachi, please, that one. But, I really could go on and on and on about this.
I've got something to say, actually, off the back of what you're saying, Shaun. These people were invisible, The first time I heard about Darkus was in an interview in the London 2012 riots. And it was basically him saying to the interviewer, do you not know who I am? With all that he had done, and him, Darkus, I think out of the 9 was probably the most well-known. And yet he's speaking to this interviewer who's basically talking to him like he's just some random person off the street. And he's like, hold on, do you know what I've done for this country? Like, do you not know who I am? And we don't, I didn't, And so for me, like, this is so important. Like, a lot of the people involved in the protests at this time and in the Mangrove 9, like they were just, common people. I think that's beautiful about this. Like, they were your neighbors. They were the person that works in the shop next door. But we still, like, we don't know who they were, and we should, we ought to, because they were a part of shaping the world that we live in right now. And the fact that their stories have gone untold is an injustice in itself. So for me, this feels incredibly important to be part of something like this.
Great, thank you so much. And yes, I think it's important that the present generations understand what happened and how it applies to everything that's going on, because sadly, Black people are still being victimized, abused, tormented, and sadly, we still got to be protesting and speaking up for our rights. But it's like, as we say back home, we take up fire rage. We got to keep doing what we got to do, right? So again, I appreciate all 3 of you for doing what you've done.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Steve's represented as well, because we can think of many writer-directors around this planet who have represented their heritage. I can think of 5 names off the dome right now, and we'll know 2 or 3 of them off the dome right now. People who have told stories about their heritage, their ancestry. If you want to talk about Schindler's List, I mean, we could go on. I won't bother. The Italians covered by that guy. It goes on. And what we have right now is Steve McQueen has done that. He's just following the tradition of telling stories that represent his heritage. And it's just nice that we now get our turn.
Hi, I'm Ray Cornelius from Atlanta. Welcome, Amarah, Malachi, and Shaun. Loved the films, really enjoyed watching them. I wanted to know, working with Steve McQueen, you guys have alluded a little bit to this, but what was it really like working with him, because there were times when I felt that what I was seeing was a little bit of ad lib, like you said, he was like, just go for it. And in particular, the scenes where you guys, Malachi and Shaun, where you were thrown into prison after one of the trials, and they kind of manhandled you guys and threw you into that. But if you can, just kind of share, I guess, maybe a lesson learned from working with Steve McQueen.
I mean, for me personally, it was terrifying. And not because he's a monster, but because he's excellent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Trying to meet him at that same place, and maybe even go further than that, was terrifying in the best possible way as an artist, because he cared. And I think Shaun said it as well, like he just cared. And he cared with all of his being, from the soles of his feet to the top of his head, like literally he cared. And so, yeah, it was incredible to work with him. Every moment mattered. I remember reading the script and going, oh, like, you know, you've got your 3-page scenes and you're going, okay, this is the one you're gonna dig into. And then you've got like the small, like 1-line montage scene where you feel like that's gonna be a quick day. And nah, not with Steve, like it matters. If it's in the script, if it's in the scene, if it's in the story, it matters. So those 1-line montages would turn into 20-minute improvisations, and you're there and you're giving all of yourself. And so for me, one of the biggest lessons that he kind of reiterated over and over again on set was like, if you're not going to give it everything that you have right now, then go home.
Yeah.
Because we're today, gone tomorrow. Like, what's the point? So it's either we're here or we're not. And if we're here, let's be here. You know, for me, I'm probably going to take that lesson into me, you know, into life with me, you know, whatever I find myself doing, especially as an artist. If I'm gonna give my time to it and my energy to it and my spirit to it, then let me give all that I can, for sure.
Malachi, do you remember? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Who do I?
What I was gonna say was, I don't know how it was for Mangrove, but with filming Lovers Rock, Steve is someone that is so trusting of his actors and so open. The thing with him is, as long as the foundation for his vision is still very strong, he's like, let's play, let's see what happens. You know the words, you know what's going on in this scene, trust yourself. And I think coming from something like Harry Potter, where it's very much, you need to be on this mark, on the 5th count of the 5th bar, I wasn't very keen on improv. Steve is all about the improv, see what happens. I think there's a beautiful moment when me and Michael are doing our scene, and Martha obviously offended Franklin that much that he gave her the dirtiest look and said, "Your blood clot." And Steve said, "Well, keep that, tell me we got that," you know, because he said, just trust yourself to see what happens. And he's definitely taught me to definitely just trust myself more. And I deserve to be there as much as anyone else. And he gave me the job because he trusts what I'm going to bring to it.
And you're right, sir, Ray. Yes, you could feel that. Probably because it wasn't as good, but yeah, there were bits certainly in that prison cell. I mean, I actually went up to the vocal coach who was there on hand, Hazel, for our Trinidadian accents and stuff. And I said to her, like, how do you say savages? She was like, why? It's not in the script. I was like, don't worry about that, mate. I'm calling it. I'm flipping it, mate. I'm flipping it. I'm calling them savages all over the place. Don't worry about that. So I was yeah, there were bits, there were times I kind of changed pretty much a lot of my stuff because it was written in a Jamaican patois, and I went through every single line with my Trinidadian friend, and we turned it all round, because as people who know, you know, Jamaica, it's very different. It's just very different. The mood, the attitude, how people get angry is very different. So you're right. There was space there to make it your own, as long as it felt real. But Malachi, do you remember when we did the? Do you remember when we did the in the room, and we did our scene in the room, like at the beginning before we filmed anything?
Yeah.
And Steve went, it better be better than that. Do you remember that? we did the scene, one of our scenes, yeah? We did one of our scenes in the, like, and we were rehearsing. It was rehearsals before we even shot anything. And we did it, and we finished, and we knew it went right. And Steve was like, I don't know what that was, but it better be better than that. So on the day Malachi, do you remember? For 2 days.
I thought rehearsals were warm-ups, but like, no.
Do you remember all day we were like, do you want to do that scene? Do you want to do that scene? Do you remember?
Yeah, yeah.
We any chance we had, and we weren't even doing that scene that day. You know, we needed to get it right, because Steve doesn't mess around. But as long as you turn up and you do the scene and you feel it and you understand it enough that you can then make it your own, because you understand it that well. You understand it because this is life. It's real. This is real. This isn't play. It's not even Shakespeare. And even Shakespeare is kind of real. This really happened. So no one pulled this story out of their backside. This is something that, you know what I mean? If we get this right and we all shine, meaning we all do our part, the audience will be sat there and they will receive this message, this frequency, and will be affected. I think Steve likes to make the audience feel nourished when they walk out of a cinema, and I think he knows that the food is in what everybody does in front of and behind of that camera on the day. Everything has to be right. The costume, the hair, you know, that newspaper. Do you remember that day? It's like, this newspaper, why is there a newspaper from 1978 in the background? It should be 1969. Do you remember stuff like that, Malachi? I mean, it was like attention to detail. So it was also wonderful, is the word really, to be involved in something where not only did he care, but there was an attention to detail. It wasn't one of those, well, we'll do it, but we're not going to do it 100%. We don't have to do it with quality. It's okay. They'll get it. They'll get it. There was none of that for this project. You know, we needed to do it with quality. It's not just a black thing and they'll get it. No, it needed to be done so that people are feeling it. So yes, there was a chance to, as you ask, you know, to go off the piste, as it were, with the script, but equally, as long as you felt it, what you were saying and what you were bringing, it was okay with Steve.
Hi, everybody. Great work across the board. I was curious if you all could talk about what it was like playing with the different cultures that are featured in these stories. I was getting familiar with a lot of them throughout this work, and I also went to college at Queens, but I would love if you could speak about the African, Jamaican, and Trinidad cultures that were involved in these stories.
I think for me, it was so close to home already. What I always say is wherever I went with my dad, especially because Lovers Rock is a lot of it, it's the music that drives it. So wherever I went with Daddy back in the day, it was either Lovers Rock music, reggae music, or Tupac all the time. So I've always had this, being at Granddad's house, me and my cousins eating our food on the floor, and he's got his massive speakers and you feel the bass in your bum, you know, you feel it, you fully feel it. My mum still has her CDs in the car that she sings to and from work. So it was beautiful to be brought back to that from the things that I had been doing before.
Like I said, for me, I was born in London, but my heritage is Jamaican, and this just made me appreciate that heritage more. And though I'm playing a character who is Trinidadian, I was one of the things that I struggled with actually was like, I realized how much I enjoy the Jamaican accent, and I'm using a Trinidadian one, but I'm like having to fight myself not to go Jamaican with it. But I mean, it was beautiful just to play someone from the Caribbean and to be able to like be in those clothes and have that musicality, especially with Trinidadian. Oh man, I know that culture, but I know it so much more now, and I appreciate it so much more now. And the musicality of them and the regalness of how they hold themselves, and especially as Shaun was saying, in the way that they emote and express themselves when they feel. It's like it's with a different kind of presence, you know, which was a beautiful thing to be a part of. And again, like, you know, with Steve, like his attention to detail, like it's not just like he understands how much food is a part of culture. You know, so he enjoys that. You know, there were moments where, you know, you have like Shaun, you know it, like where your character's like listing off the food, like the rice and peas and the roti, and you know, we've got jerk and we've got callaloo. You know, he's enjoying that. That's just as important as us marching on the street. in terms of what this project stands for.
Okay, hi. Hey, Malachi, I interviewed you via phone when you did Roots. And so I was wondering, how did being a part of that and playing Kunta Kinte impact your work going forward, especially in doing Mangrove? And to all of you, how gratifying is it that you get to educate people outside of the UK about the Black experience? Because in the United States, people so often assume that everything is just fine in the UK and that Black people in the UK don't have a struggle.
Okay. I mean, for me personally, I didn't grow up wanting to be an actor, right? It's something that gravitated towards me, if I'm honest, when I reached around 18, and eventually I said yes to it and kept saying yes to it. But to your question, it was Kunta Kinte playing that character in Roots that made me, it wasn't the first moment where I was like, this is what I want to do, but it definitely was one of the first moments where I went, actually, what I do matters, and I want it to matter, and I want to care about it. I remember how much of a joy it was to promote that show. You know, like I wanted to promote it because I wanted to speak about it, not because of vanity, not because of myself, but because I believe that story mattered. And so in terms of the effect it had on my career and the choices I made going forward, I definitely wanted to try and seek out more of that work that I personally cared about, not just the opportunities I was given, but the stories that I wanted to tell. And it's still a process, you know. I wouldn't say that every single job I've done since has been that you take jobs for different reasons, but definitely I am more on the front foot now in terms of seeking out work that actually, you know, keeps me up at night. And I want to just go around the world saying, can you watch this show? Don't watch me in it, just watch the show because it matters, you know? So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
And then also the rest of you about being able to share this outside of the UK and give light to the struggles that Black people have in the UK, because on this side of the pond, people are like, you know, everything is great. And, you know, like you get to play roles where it's not governed by who you are. I remember Idris Elba saying a long time ago, one of the things that he appreciated about being in the United States was that you got to specifically play a Black character. Whereas in his early acting experience, that wasn't what he was allowed to do.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, Amarah, do you wanna?
Oh, you go for it.
I've lived in America on and off as well, in LA for the last 10 years. So I'm very well aware of, and I remember like in the 90s talking to Idris, and I'm looking up at Idris like this because Idris is tall, and we're at a party, and I'm like, "You're not going, are you?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm going, Shaun. I'm going. I gotta go." And he went to America, and I remember going, "Oh, another one bites the dust, another one." But I am that dude who understands when I go to America and I speak to Americans, and I say, you know, how much do you know about England? And they're like, "Oh, yeah, I mean, you know, the Queen, Tony Blair, man, and whatever else." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, there's more to London than that." But I understand, like, let's talk about Black America. Okay, let's talk about Black America. I mean, as you say, it's a very good question, as they all have been, really. Because we know so much, as I've said before, we know so much about you guys. If you want to talk about Roots, the original version, or if you want to talk about The Cosby Show, as I've said before, I know it's controversial, I don't care. I watched it, every single episode of The Cosby Show, and that's that. In terms of like, if you want like Billie Holiday, all your musicians, the list goes on. It's not even worth me talking about. We know so much about your culture. But let me tell you what I believe we've seen. We've seen Black America change, maybe for the better or something, or something's happened as a result of you being able to exorcise demons and things, just have a story and commit to the word or the action in terms of exploration of the mind of history. I come over to America and I have to kind of like go up for various characters. So I'm looking at Fred Hampton, I'm looking at this guy over there, that guy over there, your history, it's out there. And And we haven't had a chance to put our history out there. And how does that make us feel? Well, not how does it make us feel, but therefore then how does it feel when you actually are able to tell a real story? It feels amazing. And yeah, you wonder why this hasn't happened before. And yeah, it makes you, as Malachi said, it trips you out because you're thinking, man, this is all I want to do now. I want to tell stories that matter. That my people, when I say my people, it doesn't mean not just black, white, and whatever, but I do mean my people, like my mum. Someone like my mum can go and get it, and she gets it. And I can go to America now and not have people go, when they look at me, they have an understanding. And it's not Americans' fault that they don't know us. It's that we haven't put anything out for them to know about us. As you mentioned before, Desmond's Carolyn and whatever else. So I think it was, but if it wasn't, so sorry. But and maybe Babylon as a film, a great film, Shoot the Messenger. In recent years, I'm trying to think of things in recent years, but there's just something to be said about our history being out there and having these young'uns know who they are and know their power, what power they have within them. Yeah. It's so important. And I just don't think that there are very many positive, and again, we are talking about England, I'm not altogether too sure that there's too much positivity from knowing who you are, knowing your heritage, feeling good about that, and letting it take you higher as you stand on the shoulder of these giants and maybe see some stuff that they can't see. It's like, we have to keep making these things, and not waiting for people to make them. But that's a whole other story, which I'll go into another time. But that said, it's amazing to be a part of these types of things, but it can't stop here. Telling real stories about real stuff that, as I say, teaches these kids subliminally sometimes as well, without you bashing them around the head, just to have them go and watch something and not have anyone say nothing. I understand that that's how you get to people, really, actually, is they didn't even know that they were being taught anything. They didn't even know that that's what was happening. That's the best way. But yeah, it's been important. It's been very good because I've been shouting for a long time for Britain to tell their stories and not be scared, because at some point, our young'uns are going to reap the benefits from having access to all of this history, which they haven't had before.
This has been absolutely fantastic. Amarah, do you have something you want to add?
I think that Shaun and Malachi answered it perfectly. I think where it's my first screen job, I'm just feel blessed to be a part of something that is really educating a lot of people on important stories. I'm also excited for the doors it's going to open for the industry in terms of the stories that they're telling. And it's the same as Malachi, it's really made me question the sort of jobs I'm going to take after this and the sort of stories I want to be telling.
And Amarah, you guys get to speak in the language. I love that it's not translated and that you have to be in the story and get into the rhythm of how people actually speak.
Yeah, no, definitely. But I think it's especially spending time with my dad. That's just how my dad speaks all the time. And to go in and out of it, it's almost like I think Michael said something amazing the other day of, it's like when someone speaks Spanish and then they kind of go into English a bit and then come back into this, it's that sort of similar thing. So it was really beautiful to explore that. It was really beautiful.
Well, Malachi, Shaun, and Amarah, we loved this. We loved watching you. On behalf of the world's largest group of Black film critics, we are here to let you know that we got you, and that we will continue to support you as your careers continue to grow and elevate. Thank you very much for watching this episode of the AAFCA channel, and you guys stay blessed.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you. Thank you.